Welcome to the third of our World of the Bulk Wine Talks presented by the World Bulk Wine Exhibition. My name is Robert Joseph, and over this week, next week, we're looking at the world of wine through the prism of bulk, but through a much broader prism than that. Because I think anybody who knows much about wine knows that across the year we have Provine, we have Vinexpo, we have Vinitaly, and so on. But the other event that doesn't always get as much focus as it deserves is the World Bulk Wine Exhibition in Amsterdam, which is where we would be now, and where my guest this evening, Bernard Fontannaz, and I would be sharing a beer after a day of tasting and seeing customers and so on today. And the World Bulk Wine Exhibition is something that if you don't know about bulk, or don't know about the wine, how the wine market is working today, is a fascinating event because it doesn't look like the other fairs I mentioned. There aren't the glitzy stands. Aren't the restaurants and the things that you'd find, for example, at Vinexpo. Basically, it's a working environment. There are shell scheme stands. The bottles on the stands, obviously, very often are unmarked because it's bulk wine, and everybody there is there to work. But the interesting thing is that when you say bulk wine, for an awful lot of people, they assume you're talking about very cheap, very basic wine at under a euro a litre. Actually, bulk wine fair, you've got Châteauneuf-du-Pape, you've got Chablis, you've got Chianti, you've got a wide range. You've got Shiraz from Australia at $4, $5 a litre, and you've got a wide range. And we'll be talking about that today. There are also conferences, which is one of the reasons I normally speak at these events, and it's one of the reasons I'm very happy to be doing these conference sessions here online today. And of course, there's a lot of meeting. And one of the things that the World Bulk Wine Exhibition has done as part of their effort to replace or try to replace some of what happens in real life with an online version is there's something called the World Bulk Wine Exhibition Connect, which tries to put together buyers who would be attending the exhibition and exhibitors who also would be pouring there. And if you go to the website, you can find out about that. Now, my guest this evening is a friend from many, many years, Bernard Fontannaz from Origin Wines. And Bernard, born in Switzerland, and has got really one of the reasons I love talking to Bernard, and we have many conversations over the years, is that he has a very broad vision of the wine world. Bernard is in South Africa, talking to us in South Africa this evening. He has been very involved in the South African wine market in the Netherlands and in the UK and internationally, both with branded wines, being a pioneer of the the fair trade sector. Also, we can talk about organics and other areas in that, and with branded and with private labels. So quite a lot of wine for big supermarkets like Tesco's and the others. So he sees both sides of that, and also has an estate in South Africa, and he's actually got some land, I think, in Argentina as well, where he has some premium brands, and that's a growing sector of his market. So he's covering the range. We're going to be talking about Argentina later in the week. So tonight we're really focusing on South Africa, which is obviously one of the most important countries in terms of bulk wine. And it's got all sorts of potential and some challenges as well. Bernard, that introduction I gave you of Origin Wines, do you want to say a little bit more about the background to Origin before we go any further?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to take part of the discussions tonight. Yeah, so indeed, born in Switzerland with a funny accent, a bit of a French tent accent. Say good blood never lies, so it's difficult to get rid of a character. I wouldn't want to. So if you tell me it's not about you, it's about me. Don't worry about it. You get used to it slowly but surely. So as Robert said, I've been involved in South covering basically the off-trade. 95% of our activities are in off-trade. Our model is to work as directly as possible with retailers, so we bypass whatever importer, agent, and others in between. Because let's face it, it's a competitive market, and to be competitive, you have to be lean and mean. More lean than mean, but yes, you have to be very competitive and to have a direct structure as much as possible. We're covering from on-label, entry-level, which is the bread and butter of a lot of business and a lot of retail. Never forget that. To the, I would say, premium level, and we have to qualify premium. In UK, it will be up to 10 bottles, so it's not a high premium, but it's premium in the acceptation of the term. With some branded, we have Grand Domaine, Stellenbosch, as Robert mentioned, and we have also Fincanita in Argentina. So it gives us a broad scope, and it gives us a big aperçu and a good understanding of what the wine business is all about. So bulk is often a bit looked down by the wine connoisseur to a certain extent, which I think it's unwarranted, because bulk well done is a very meaningful business for all, and it's a very important dimension of the wine industry, as Robert mentioned. Bulk is there to stay and is there to develop itself. Well done, it can be sustainable like any business. It's a way to bring wine to consumer, and the more wine you can bring consumers, the better we are. So as Robert said, we have been pioneering fair trade. I think it's important to mention in South Africa. We all know the dimension and challenges that face South Africa, not just South Africa, all the new world, but South Africa in particular, especially due to the stigma of the past. Let's not forget that. As well as important as otherwise is the organic dimension. Organic is becoming more and more important. South Africa has ways which allow to do it very well, and it's a way to add value. Ultimately, we want to make it sustainable for all, and the way to be sustainable is to add value, to have USP, and to have a point of distinction. So if I look at South African context, trade will be tick in a box. Organic will be an added a bonus to develop. We have seen along the year that niche market becoming more and more important, meaningful, and material. Important also for South Africa is that I think we have very good value for money, and people say cheap. I think it's not cheap. It's value for money. There's no confuse, because there's a lot of cheap ones which are not good value for money. It's a big distinction. So South Africa is value for money. That means we have a ratio quality price which is very, very competitive, if it's not unbeatable, especially on the white side. We had challenge to harvest, as we all documented and well studied, and we had a drought in 2018, which was drastic. The day zero in Cape Town, and we almost end up in being a catastrophic scenario. Narrowly avoided because of discipline of the people and the community getting together to overcome challenge like drought. It's quite amazing and revigorating. But it created a lot of challenges for the industry. We ran out of wine, our price went up. 18 was a perfect storm. Everywhere in the world was a shortage, so the price started to become, I think, overpriced to a certain extent, which cost us some market share. Which
can I interrupt you there? But just going back, now price is an interesting, it's a crucial question, price, because there is a question whether the price of wine in South Africa is sustainable. I understand that there are a number of wineries in the last couple of years who've given up making wine, and you're involved, as we said, in Argentina and in South Africa. And these two countries, along with Spain, have the reputation for being the place, and we can say Eastern Europe as well, but those two particularly are the place to go to for inexpensive Cabernet Sauvignon, for Sauvignon Blanc, for the key varietals, if you like. And my question is, can you go on producing wine commercially at the prices that people are prepared to pay for them, especially with the challenges of water that you've had and you are going to have again?
Well, it's a very good question. Per hectare, ultimately, anybody can make his sum, and everybody can make his choice. I would say for a lot of wine growers, it's not sustainable, and they will switch back to fruit. They will switch to other activities which are more financially interesting. If you're a good farmer, if you're a professional and you farm properly, you can make a living, and you can make a very good living if you have the right mix of varietal as well. The challenge we have in South Africa is a challenge and a problem, in a sense, is that we have far too many varietal that people don't really want. We have too much Colomba, especially Colomba, which tend to be white. When you talk about generic white, they become a commodity. Commodity is well price. Thereafter is demand or supply, and if you have too much supply, you know what happens? The price go down. It's very simple. We all study economics. So your answer is right, but it's the responsibility of the grape grower to make sure this portfolio has a certain add interest and attraction to be able to command a higher price. Otherwise, if you play at the rock bottom, obviously you'll be a loss leader, and loss leader means you won't make automatically. And But in the same token, as earlier on, we have a fair trade dimension, which guarantees a sustainable price. Arguable, you could say, but does guarantee a sustainable price. We have organic, who create an added value, who create a USP, it's not a USP, but yeah, an added value on bulk, which allow you to command something which is no more a commodity. So if you do dry white, dry red, generic, you are at the mercy of the market. But the market will kill. That's nature of law. If you have a mixed basket with, you mentioned Sauvignon Blanc. So I think is a tremendous offer from South Africa. We are halfway between old world Sancerre style and other style. So we have something which is quite unique in itself. There, it's totally sustainable. It's totally sustainable. But it comes down also to the grape grower being professional, optimizing his output, and arguably enough, and planting the right varietal for the right terroir, for the right market. So the farming.
Can we go back to that water? So water is a question. You've had. I mean, South Africa is a region in the Cape. You rely on irrigation. It's very hard to dry farm commercially for at the prices we're talking about. So, do you feel confident, as somebody who is invested in vineyards there and is long term, that there's going to be enough water over the years for South Africa to go on producing wines at the sort of price points we're talking about?
Well, it's a good question. We have enough water, we can store it for long enough. I mean, I'm not trying to avoid the answer, but the point is, South Africa is depending on rainfall. Rainfall is 750 millimeter, which is mostly coming over the winter, which is June, July. 600 come during the winter, and then 50 thereafter. The 600 millimeter per year falling during winter has to stock and store. That's why we have open dam all over the Cape, as you know, when you travel throughout the Western Cape. The challenge we have, and I'll give you an example of the West Coast, the Glen William Dam have been under discussion to be increased for 10 years, to the point that there is machine ready to go and few other things. As it is, the Glen William Dam can store 1.5 year of stock. If you raise the wall, and the raise will be wall sooner or later, it will be 2 years. In 2 years, if you had that in 18 or 17, means for 18, we wouldn't have the problem we had. We will have a problem, not dimension and not to the extent of what we had. So to answer your question, yes, water will always be a problem, but there is mean to alleviate drought by storing water efficiently. Now, the other question is that, what do? Do you farm something else? Water is not that intense. Vineyards are not that intensive in water. You plant fruit, much more. Lemon, citrus, much more. Now they're planting, which is a sucker of water of note. So the point, I think vineyards is relatively well adapted for arid growing condition. If we have the capacity storage availability to do so, and I think overcome or attenuate drought effect, which might come back. Don't worry. I'm no illusion that it might come back, but we can alleviate that.
Thank you. Now, the other question, you mentioned economics. Now, one of the things that has been a huge question for South Africa has always been exchange rates, because the rand goes up and down and up and down. Now, your customers aren't paying you. They don't want to pay you in rands. They want to pay you in, they're dealing in dollars or euros or pounds. How does that work for you as a supplier of bulk wine?
That's an ongoing question. As much as we watch exchange rate, so is a buyer or the retailer of this world watching the exchange rate. So in absolute term, if you build your business rate, I think the key, because there is no long-term win. There might be quick money, but quick money never lasts. So you have to position yourself in a way that in a rand term, it becomes sustainable. Yes, you'll have some up and down. Yes, you'll have some win and you have some lows. I did an exercise 2 years ago. Over the last 10 years, we take some forward cover. We try to be clever. And in fact, if we had just followed the rand, which is up and down, we would have been better off at the end of the year, at the end of the 10 years. So I would say the exchange rate is real, but so is relative for the retailing, and they watch as much as we do. So if we can ask for some more support, when it's strengthened, very seldom we get back something. So I wouldn't build the business on exchange rate. You have, and I say, but you have to make it sustainable in currency that you're dealing with in your country. That first and foremost, to me, is a basic condition.
Now, you also mentioned sustainable and organic. Now, historically, it hasn't always been easy to get the premium price back. So it costs more to farm organically in terms of your cost per liter, if you like. My understanding is historically, you haven't always had retailers and customers overseas prepared to pay that premium. Is that changing?
I think it does. I think it does cost more, and arguably enough, it's between 10 and 15%, people would argue, but it costs more. There's a reality of life, and that's unarguable and easily provable. The premium, you do get a premium. You do, and I do think, if I look at ourselves, we do rate some premium on organic. It's the same token that it costs us more, so we're not really so. More important is that you're less depending on cycle. When you have a USP or a point difference or an organic dimension of the sort, you are less sensitive for cycle because you are less replaceable. So the advantage of an organic dimension for me, first and foremost, kind of what should be done, sustainably speaking, because ultimately we need to save our planet, because we're not exactly the best friend of our planet. We're basically destroying it slowly but surely. Let's face it, good work on that. So we need to look after our planet because ultimately that's where we live. So first and foremost, there is a kind of almost a self-responsibility to protect our planet. Secondly, is to answer the need of the young customer. The new customer is a lot more ecologically aware, is a lot more toward, I would say, averse into sustainability. The older customers, the young one has been more exposed. I think they're becoming more and more aware. There's an awareness developing into the young customer, and we need to tap this customer. But my argument is not all about the cost and the price and how much you make. Is to have a sustainable and long-term market, not to be interchangeable. Because the problem with bulk, and the people who often say with bulk, you go quickly up, you go quickly down, you quickly replace, because there's a lot of people offering the same product. So how do you do almost sounds an oxymoron, but how do you do a bulk? How do you make bulk more meaningful to your client and customer? Organic is one of them. Might not get a better price ultimately because the cost is higher, but you would get a market. In terms of surplus, which I think we're slowly but surely going into, having a market is quintessential.
Now, taking that, you've taken some of the words out of my mouth there. Now, you're talking to let's say European, American, wherever they are, customers who say to you, we need some Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, it may be that you've got Cabernet Sauvignon and it's relevant to you as a company because you could supply me potentially with Cabernet Sauvignon from Argentina or from South Africa. One of the problems of bulk to me is, especially, and you could possibly do organic Cabernet Sauvignon from both those markets at a similar price. How does South Africa build itself a brand when its wines are being treated as a commodity, especially since somebody's going to come along from Hungary or Romania or another country and say, I've got some organic Cabernet Sauvignon as well?
That's a real challenge. That's a $1 million question. That's a real challenge. How do you create a follow up? How do you create, I would say, I'm looking for the term, fidelity, to a certain extent, to your supply. And that in bulk is a danger because bulk is, as I say, a brand oxymoron. Bulk is branded per se by definition most of the time. So to me, the point I will make, and as I alluded earlier, we are extra for money. So I believe that South Africa, for example, you mentioned, we are at certain price point offering a better value than a similar price point from another country. To put name on another country, we want to create a conflict of the sort. But that's where your ratio quality price matter. And if your ratio quality price is good, well, tick in the box. Thereafter is a service. Your service, because at one stage we are almost in a service industry. We are in a service where, good, yes, we sell commodity, but the service is quintessential. If your service is top notch, if your service is up to the top level standard with all accreditation that need, and I emphasize accreditation because people are becoming more and more demanding, rightly so, to have people who are accredited. Just go and sell a bulk one like that out of your back of your car. That's the all good days I think are over with the service people. So if you have a quality price and you have a service level which is outstanding, you have a good chance to keep your client. But the risk is there, no doubt. Bulk comes and goes. Bulk come and go.
So over the years that you've been selling both bulk and bottle, but particularly bulk, which markets have grown, and B, which markets are your main markets today?
UK is still our main market. UK is a very competitive market, and the market can move volume. There's not discard that. It's the second biggest world market, as we know, after the US, and is a market that can move volume. So we have been very, very successful in UK, and has been historically our biggest market. It's still our biggest market, even so the percentage decrease because we increase others. So we didn't lose market share, but we increase other markets. Holland for us historically has been a big market. South Africa has always been doing well in Holland because of historical link. Even so, South Africa has been overtaken by Chile now in Holland due to the COVID embargo, supply problem in South Africa. Hopefully just an upset, a reset that we will got back next year, but that's what it shows, that things like that can have an effect and can be a vicious circle, and I'll explain later why. We have been doing North America quite a bit. North America is more, it's about opportunity. You feel demand at a certain time, it comes and goes, but they can move quickly, large volume. We have been very successful in Russia, and funny enough, in Russia, which a country with its own challenge, as we know for sure, but also a country can move material volume. And that's a beauty, because bulk often bulk speed, how quickly you can make a deal, how quickly we can move that. It's often bulk help to surplus. So market like Russia are for that. So, yeah.
How do you break down between red and white? What's the volumes for you on red and white?
Yeah, it's a good question. 55 white, 45 red, slightly more white, slightly more white.
So this year with COVID, you had an interesting situation because we'll talk about the challenge of actually picking grapes at the beginning of this year, but also actually getting the wine out of South Africa was a major challenge for you. Did that cost you customers?
Yeah, it wasn't challenge. It was impossible to face it. Harvest wasn't problematic per se, to be fair. Initially, they wanted to stop, but that was nonsense. So to be fair, it was a non-event. A bit dramatized because people like story, but it wasn't an event per se. Let's be clear and fair on every party involved. Thereafter, we were victim of local law, for better term, because export were never banned. We never were stopped to export. We were stopped to move wine locally, but to export, you have to move the wine to the harbor. So in essence, we could export, we couldn't go to the harbor. It left us up the creek without a paddle, so to speak. That was a kiss of death, because we stayed for 8 weeks without being able to export one drop wine, while together or concurrent or competitor, Europe, you name it, were all happily supplying wine. So people understand, they love us dearly, but it's not really running a business, and they replaced us. That's a problem. We lost 8 sales, which is material. 2 months of sale out of 12, you feel the pain. That added on that when we were able again, we had massive logistic issue in the harbor because COVID, the staff were reduced, there were congestion, you name it. Having promises to be able to deliver one, we were delivering one late. So it doesn't help our case either. So if altogether we leave 4 months of activity till end of June, the situation was very tense and very kind of, very, very dramatic, shall we say. And that's what I
where is it now?
Earlier on. No, we caught first 6 months, we were minus 25. The last 6 months, we'll finish with an overall 12 months of plus 15, plus 20. We caught up very nicely and with hard work. But the point was, and that's everybody, and that's us, because we were more on, and that's where agility and service level makes a difference, I would have thought. But the point I wanted to make earlier on is that what people do not understand is that, for example, in Holland, we have been overtaken by Chile. And as I know, but better than me, the gatekeeper, the retailer of this world will look at the statistic, and South Africa last 12 months were not because of the reason I gave. So they say, and Chile is doing better. So they have to allocate more space shelf to Chile or South Africa. Less shelf space means less wine, less sales. Sales means less shares, less wine. Vicious circle. So we break that vicious circle is a real challenge to Africa right now. We need to go back into the commercial world, be very aggressive to reverse the trend, because the trend is negative. Right now, the spiral is downwards. For no fault of anybody. It is what it is, but we have to deal with it. And bulk can help, because you can quickly make some deal, bring back some traction, bring back some spotlight to South Africa, and reverse the trend. Our task on this next 18 months for South African wine industry is to reverse the trend. Otherwise, the trend will worst and it will become more.
Now, you mentioned North America, and you said that that's an opportunistic market. Now, I think one of the things that's, and I spent some time in New York earlier in the year when we were still traveling. There's not a lot of premium South African. There's not a lot of South African wine in the market, but one of the gaps. Australia is not very strong in premium wine, super premium wine, and South Africa is even weaker. Now, to me, there is a question, and I think Eastern Europe would be another area where this is also true. If you are associated in the mind of the professionals with bulk wine, with inexpensive white wine in particular, surely that makes it more challenging to sell super premium red. And this is obviously very directly relevant to you because of your origin estate, where you're trying to sell. What's the price of your estate wine in a bottle? What would that cost in America if it was on a shelf?
14, 15
retail. Yeah. So it's not super premium, but it's certainly into the premium levels, and that's challenging. How does South Africa play both these games? It's like playing rugby and soccer. They're different games, and if you're seen as being good at one, how do you do the other?
I think the challenge we have altogether is that, at least in Europe, when you go to the supermarket, you look for South African wine, you find a section where it's South African wine and it's written South Africa. It helps. You go to, as you know, you look for South Africa, you're lucky if you find them at the bottom of the corner with other parts of the world. That's a challenge. South Africa is not a category, and people are very understanding, if any, of South Africa. You know, they see South Africa as this big continent with somewhere down at the bottom on the right-hand side. If they know that, we already make a good step. But there is no category per se. So it's already first to make the consumer aware of it. So that's step number one, and it will take us a long time. When we get to that level, yes, the quality will speak by itself. And there is some people who are fairly successful in Africa, in America, but it's tiny. It's tiny. It's an exception rather than a rule, sadly. I see South Africa, I see America as being a major challenge for South African wine, just because the awareness is not there. We're not registering.
So you mentioned Chile earlier.
What I wanted to make earlier on, I say it's community and opportunistic in America. Most of the bulk wine which will be sold from South Africa in America or North America will never be sold under a South African label. They will go on a generic label. So we're not helping anything. You know, I mean, that's why I'm saying even more opportunity, because it's frankly just a volume driving element for a brand which is not a South African brand. So that's not exactly helping the country.
Now, the other side of the coin, and this is obviously very relevant to bulk, is if we look at Chile, and you said that Chile is doing particularly well in Holland at the moment, for example. We have some strong brands. We have particularly Conchitoro, but we have some other brands beneath that. South Africa doesn't have the level of brands with global reach that, for example, Chile does.
But South Africa is a bit more fragmented also. You know, I mean, we don't have a Conchitoro, Distel, obviously, which has a significant size. But Conchitoro is one business. Distel is not only, Distel is, among other things, a wine business, but among other things, Conchitoro is a wine business. There's a focus, there's a culture, it's about wine, and wine. And I think they make a difference. It's not only Toro, it's a good example of others in Chile. But it's a lot less fragmented than South Africa is. That's why they manage, I think overall, more branded and more efficient in building image. Even so, I believe South Africa a lot more often than Chile. And listen, don't like what I'm saying, obviously, but it's on corner. But I do think that so much better. That is a weakness of our industry to an extent. We didn't really manage to position and to create that national dimension. So yes, I think Chile has, to any extent, managed better than I do think, because it's less fragmented, because there is maybe some business we are totally different to wine.
Now, the other thing is that if any of us in the wine business in volume, we are obviously, I won't say the slaves or the victims or whatever, but we are dependent on big retail, whatever happens. Now, whether we're selling bottled wine with a brand or we're selling bulk into their private labels, we are dancing to their tune inevitably, because in the world they're selling 70 to 80% of the, certainly the off-trade wine, and obviously the on-trade is even worse at the moment. So now if we're in the bulk market and we're supplying their private label, that means we're even more dependent on them in a way than with a brand. At least if you have a branded product, you can create some demand for it through marketing. Yeah. With private label, we can't. Is there an argument that at the moment, however good you think South Africa's wine is and the value it represents, that the focus on bulk has held South Africa back from building its reputation at a higher level?
Well, that's interesting. It's an interesting question, and my will be that you have to get the customer at a certain level, because ultimately we are dependent on customer. The retailers are only translating the customer, or they should only translate the customer need, to be fair. And if they don't, normally they go out of business, because the customer is king at the end. But so the point I'm making is that he may and may not have. And what I'm saying is that often when you're new in a wine, you will buy entry level, you don't want to spend too much because you don't know it. And you will buy often on endorsed because you don't know better, and you look for a kind of a criteria of quality. So if you do a good job as entry level, if you do a good job with some clean, fruity wine, value for money, you have a chance to hook, to speak, as customer for later more premium wine. But you have to start somewhere. I mean, it's very unlikely that you're successful starting a super premium and saying that people will buy, because at that level, there is a renommé, there's a brand tradition, and let's face it, the competition is fierce, and you have big name, and you have centuries of tradition who may not be existing in South Africa, for that matter, on certain level, on certain brand. So my argument is that we need the whole spectrum. We need to get the people as a beginning to take them through the journey of discovering what a wine is, and hopefully bring them to a level where you want them to be. So I think if it's well done, and often South African wine on level are well done, to be fair, I think, as I said, we're offering an excellent value for money, a good way to get the customer to discover what South Africa is all about. Otherwise, how do you do that? How do you get test South African wine?
So with your own estate, which is within a region, a specific region within South Africa, how do we sell regions, whether it's Stellenbosch or Hermanus or whatever, Robertson, at a time where so much South African wine is just going as Cape Cabernet or Cape Chenin, Cape Sauvignon?
Yeah, but to me, an origin is a brand. I'm not playing with words. An origin is a brand because it has a positive, normally index on quality, because people stick Stellenbosch, I think, handcrafted wine, small vineyards, pristine landscape. So there is positive in the consumer mind. So what I'm saying, Stellenbosch, as Mendoza is, for that matter, using the example of Argentina, Mendoza is a brand. And you could have a Cape, you could have Western Cape, which is generic as can, or you could have Stellenbosch, which is more premium, which is more, I think, eclectic, and command a positive perception with the customer. So a way to enhance, to have a USP, to enhance the experience of the customer, is to build on origin, without playing with words, to play with origin like Stellenbosch. I do believe, like Swartland showed it very well in South Africa, and as a good example of success. Swartland, which 20 years ago was totally unknown, underrated, became the darling of the wine industry, because they managed to bring a dimension, they managed to bring a point of difference, and you have to stand out, you have to wish yourself, and appellation can make a big difference.
But it's still, I mean, regions like Tilbach, if you like, still struggle outside South Africa, don't they?
Of course, because nobody knows it. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, I mean, we need to define what we want to do. Do we talk to the average consumer, who is happy to spend, could be a premium, we're happy to spend 6 to 10 quid in UK, let's face it. That's South African wine is 5, let's not forget. So we talk about £6-7, we already premium. If that kind of customer, unless he has been lucky to visit South Africa and being in Tulbagh, he has no idea where Tulbagh is. The only name he might have a connection to or slightest idea is Stellenbosch. Yes, the more you become, if you become too specific, I think you almost defeat purpose. You need to use, at that level I'm talking, at that level, you need to use appellation which resonate a little bit with the consumer. If you become too specific, forget. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but you won't get the result.
So looking ahead, sorry?
No, go.
So if we're looking into the future, so I'm hoping that you and I will meet certainly before this time next year in Amsterdam, but let's look into the future years, the next 5 years of wine. You've invested in an estate. How many hectares do you have in your vineyards now in South Africa?
Hectares, it's very small, 15 super premium Devon Valley outside.
But that's an investment.
Beautiful. It's an investment, yeah. Well,
that's an investment.
It's not a return it's a return on ego more than a return on investment, but nevertheless,
okay.
Time will tell.
But you also have a business based on South Africa in many other ways. How do you see the next 5 to 10 years evolving in South Africa, both in terms of wine generally and also the bulk market? Will we see more? Will the bulk proportion grow or shrink? Yesterday, I was talking on this series with Greg Livingood from Siati. And as he was saying, in the US, private label has actually dropped a bit in the last few months as people have actually gone back to buying labels and brands they know and rely on.
Yeah.
How do you see the bulk market globally and in South Africa evolving over the next 5 years?
I think we're going towards a challenging time. I think there is a surplus coming out of every single country, plus minus, exception I would think, out the top of my mind. Even so that could change, but New Zealand is better position. So we're going towards a turbulent time, shall we say. Hence, it brings challenge. We had this in South Africa last week. What I'll say is very controversial. People don't like it, but that's it. People say, we lose hectare. South Africa is 90 hectares, very small. Let's not forget 90,000 hectares. They will say, we 20,000 hectares. We need to lose at 20,000 hectares. We need, because there is no market for that 20,000 hectares. 20,000 hectares, 15 ton an hectare, 300 ton, and 200 million liters. That's a problem we have in South Africa on an ongoing basis. And that's one who doesn't have a home because it's not a demand for it. It's too generic. It's too commodity. It's no real added value to have that if it isn't just to pump and fill up a tank. It's very controversial, what I say. But my view on South Africa, we will be better off to reduce our hectareage to 70,000 hectares, to plant more Sauvignon Blanc, to have more Pinot Grigio, to have more Cabernet of quality. It's mid-segment market. And I go back to UK because UK is a market of where we are between 6 and 8 pounds soft part, which if it's done properly, work very well for all. And you go back to your question earlier on, how do you make it sustainable? Is to reach that segment of the market. If you can cover the 6 to 8 pounds, I think everybody can do very well in sustainable market. But so we need to have a production to fit that market. That's a problem we have. The last two increased our price because of shortage, but the quality didn't increase. Consumer is no fool. He can't say, why? I like more Chile because that's that price point, because our price were artificially increased because of shortage. There's nothing wrong to increase your price, but the quality has to follow. Hence my argument, we will be better off in South Africa reducing the acreage, reducing what is basically a commodity rock bottom, which doesn't make it sustainable for anybody, and focus on a production which is of higher quality, which is a better demand, more in tune with the worldwide demand, and sell at a better price. I know it's very easy to say, but everybody look at the example of New Zealand. Amazing what they do. So we have some Sauvignon Blanc who can compete at that level.
So, Bernard, the question I was either going to open with at the beginning or at the end, and I wanted to cover some of the other ground first. We started the year with, as I said, there was a moment where people were worried about whether they could pick or couldn't, but they did. We then had a lot of wine sitting in the tanks. Two questions. One is, how full are the tanks today of stock from the past? And secondly, do we know what 2021, because those vines are going to have babies quite soon, do we know what we're looking towards for the new year?
Look, let's face it, everybody can read statistics, there's stock. But as I said to you, first 6 months we minus 25%, the last 6 months we caught up, and now we plus 10, plus 15% overall. If we did that, everybody else did that. So I'm consciously optimist that we had a disaster by June, we got out of the hole, and we'll end up positive, which means we'll be able to manage our stock. There is stock pressure, but also our sales are increasing. We are growing double digit, and if we do, others do too. So there is a stock issue that could become a problem. Could work its way out throughout the increased sales that we see. The off-trade is booming, as you know. Every country is, every retailer has a double-digit growth. So it makes quickly a big volume of difference. So there is a stock issue, but stock issue can be handled if we carry on our sales growth that we have been wanting the last 6 months. The 21 harvest is coming, as you say, very promising. Absolutely wonderful wines. Vigor is healthy. We had a very cool vegetative period up to now. We'll have some heat wave, but up to now, wonderful. Some rain, no later than yesterday, 10 millimeter. Perfect condition. So it's a good harvest coming. That I'm saying we will go through a turbulent time because there will be enough wine. Now it's up to us, obviously, to manage that. Early enough on the market, competitively enough, as first to reverse the trend that I explained earlier on, to go back in growth on shelf, on South African shelf, South African sold wine, not only for under other label. Manage that stock and get hopefully a positive growth throughout 2021 to reverse what 2020 was rather challenging 6 months.
Thank you. That question was from Sharon Nagel, by the way. Now, here's a political question, which I think is relevant to South Africa, which is that large volumes of wine leave. The grapes are picked, turned into wine, they leave in bulk. Now, there has always been that question about whether South Africans should be doing more bottling in South Africa to solve a labor problem, to actually employ those people in South Africa to bottle that wine. Is that going to be an issue, do you think?
Well, you speak to somebody who's absolutely matter. A bottle, all what is our control is bottling. We have our own bottling line, and we bottle here for the specific reason you mentioned, social issue, and social issue is about creating job, not giving money, creating job, sustainable job, and bottling is one of them. So I absolutely agree with that. Not everybody see it like that, not everybody want it like that. South Africa right now, bottling cost is very competitive. The exchange rate is favorable, so it's very competitive. It's up to us thereafter. It doesn't automatically create much more added value because you have to be competitive ultimately, but it creates job. It creates social sustainability in a country like South Africa. So if I had my way, I export 1 single liter of bulk, not because I think it's bulk is wrong, it's because I think we can create job in South Africa where it's needed.
But A, in terms of supermarkets and retailers wanting to cut their prices, and B, and you mentioned earlier in terms of sustainability, for the environment, it's actually better to ship in bulk. So surely we have a bit of a contradiction between socially what's good and
Yeah, I agree. You could argue carbon footprint, the freight, maritime freight is one of the less polluting ways of moving a wine from A to B. You pollute more for a case good from to England than you do tracking a container from Cape Town to Felixstowe. So there is argument on both sides. Ultimately, nobody is big enough to influence the market. We are caught on waves, and we go up and down with the wave, which is the market. We have to follow the wave, and we have to meet the demand of the customer. If the customer want it bottled at a place for specific one, you have to follow what the market want. Nobody can influence the market to the extent where you can put this condition. That's, to me, the key of being flexible. To us, ultimately, we are almost in the service industry. It happens we sell, but we are offering a service first and foremost.
Well, thank you very much. I think we're probably running out of time. I think we're around 45 minutes, which is what we're aiming for. So unless there's any questions, I'm just waiting to see if any other questions are going to fly in, because we're live on YouTube as well, so I can't see that. So Bernard, can I say thank you very much for your time this evening. It's a bit later for you than it is for us.
Always a pleasure.
And I wish you a very good harvest in the next few months, and I hope you and I can meet for a beer or a glass of something else very soon. So good luck to all of you. Thank you all for the audience. Please do come back and follow this series, because we're looking at Argentina. We're looking at a whole range of other subjects over the next few days. And also everything we're doing is on YouTube, so you can go back and see, for example, the conversation we had with Greg Livingood yesterday from Ciati, and the conversation I had with Adam Lechmere about the future of wine the day before. So thank you all, and thank you for the World Bulk Wine Exhibition for setting this up. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Ciao.